Unexpected beginnings. Sophie Winters adjusted her glasses as she peered into the microscope, analyzing the coral samples collected during her latest research expedition. The lab at the Coastal Marine Research Institute was quiet this evening, just as she preferred it. At 32, Sophie had built a respectable reputation in marine conservation, dedicated to saving dying coral reefs along the Pacific coast. "Dr. Winters, there's someone here to see you." Sophie looked up, surprised to find her assistant hovering in the doorway. "The fundraiser starts in an hour," her assistant reminded her, "and Mr. Reed's foundation is our biggest potential donor." Sophie sighed, glancing at her lab coat, stained with various marine substances. "Tell him I'll be right out." Nathan Reed wasn't what Sophie expected. Instead of the stuffy businessman she'd anticipated, she found herself face-to-face with a tall, casually dressed man with kind eyes and an easy smile. His dark hair was slightly windswept, and he carried himself with a relaxed confidence that seemed at odds with his status as CEO of Horizon Energy, one of the fastest-growing renewable energy companies in the country. "Dr. Winters, there's someone here to see you," he extended his hand. "I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your research on coral rehabilitation is fascinating." Sophie shook his hand, surprised by his genuine interest. "You've read my research?" he admitted. "Every published paper. Your innovative approaches to coral restoration could revolutionize how we protect marine ecosystems." Their conversation flowed effortlessly from marine biology to renewable energy, from conservation ethics to favorite dive spots in the South Pacific. By the time they arrived at the fundraiser, Sophie had forgotten her initial reluctance. The evening passed in a blur of conversations and connections, but Sophie kept finding herself drawn back to Nathan. There was something refreshingly authentic about him that set him apart from the other wealthy donors in attendance. "Would you like to continue this conversation over dinner sometime?" Nathan asked, as the event wound down. Sophie hesitated only briefly before agreeing. Their first date led to a second, then a third. Sophie discovered that beneath Nathan's success was a man driven by a genuine desire to make a positive impact on the environment. His company specialized in wave energy technology, harnessing the ocean's power without harming marine life. Over the following months, their relationship deepened. Sophie introduced Nathan to her favorite hidden coves along the coast, while he flew her to remote islands to witness successful marine conservation projects his foundation had funded. "You've changed how I see the world," Nathan told her one evening, as they sat on his yacht watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Before you, I was focused on the technology, the business. You've shown me the beauty worth saving." On their one-year anniversary, Nathan took Sophie to a small, private beach where they'd had their fourth date. As waves gently lapped at the shore, he knelt in the sand and opened a small box containing a ring with a blue diamond that matched the color of the ocean. "Sophie Winters, you have brought meaning and purpose to my life that I never knew was missing. Will you marry me?" Tears blurred Sophie's vision as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, her heart overflowing with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Their engagement announcement made headlines in both the scientific community and business world. The wedding plans quickly took shape, an intimate ceremony on Nathan's private island with only close friends and family in attendance. Everything seemed perfect. Sophie had never believed in fairy tales, but as she fell asleep each night in Nathan's arms, she couldn't help but feel she'd found her happily ever after. She had no way of knowing that in 2 short weeks, her world would shatter completely. Shattered plans. Sophie stared at her phone, rereading the text from Nathan for the 100th time. "Need to handle something. We'll call you later." That was 13 days ago, 2 weeks before their wedding, and she hadn't heard from him since. At first, she'd been worried rather than suspicious. Nathan occasionally dealt with company emergencies that demanded his full attention, but when hours stretched into days, panic set in. Her calls went straight to voicemail. His assistant claimed not to know his whereabouts.
Even his closest friend and business partner, James, seemed genuinely confused by Nathan's disappearance. "We have to call the police," Sophie insisted, pacing across James' office. James shook his head. "His security team confirmed he left voluntarily, Sophie. The company received instructions from him to proceed with the Maldives project in his absence." "So he just left? Without telling anyone where he was going or when he'd be back?" Her voice cracked. 2 weeks before our wedding? The media coverage was relentless. "Tech billionaire vanishes before wedding," and "cold feet or foul play" headlines splashed across business news and tabloids alike. Paparazzi camped outside Sophie's apartment and the research institute. Colleagues whispered as she passed. Even her parents, who had been skeptical of her whirlwind romance, called daily with concerned questions she couldn't answer. Sophie canceled the wedding arrangements in a fog of disbelief. Each email and phone call felt like another cut, bleeding away the future she'd imagined. "You need to consider the possibility that he's not coming back," her friend Maya told her gently one evening after bringing over takeout that Sophie barely touched. "I just need to know why," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "What happened? What did I miss?" As weeks turned into months, Sophie threw herself into her work. The coral restoration project expanded to 3 new sites, and she spent more time on boats and in diving gear than in her empty apartment. The physical exhaustion helped numb the emotional pain. Horizon Energy announced Nathan's official leave of absence and appointed James as interim CEO. The press gradually lost interest in the story, moving on to fresher scandals. But for Sophie, the wound remained raw. One rainy Sunday, 6 months after Nathan's disappearance, Sophie finally packed away Nathan's things that had lingered in her closet. Each item unleashed memories. His favorite sweater, a book they'd read together, tickets from a concert they'd attended. She sealed the box with packing tape, as if containing a hazardous substance. That evening, sitting on her balcony watching the rain, Sophie made a decision. Tomorrow, she would accept the research position in Australia she'd been offered. A year studying the Great Barrier Reef would give her the distance she needed from this place, these memories, and the ghost of Nathan Reed. She fell asleep on the couch, emotionally drained but resolute in her decision to move forward. The doorbell rang just after dawn. Sophie jolted awake, disoriented. Who would be at her door at 6 a.m.? Wrapping herself in a blanket, she padded to the entryway and peered through the peephole. The box of Nathan's possessions slipped from her hands, items scattering across the floor. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she fumbled with the lock. Nathan stood on her doorstep, rain-soaked and haggard. But what stole Sophie's breath entirely was the small boy with messy brown hair clutching Nathan's hand, looking up at her with curious eyes. "Sophie," Nathan said softly, "this is Leo. He's 4 years old, and he's the reason I disappeared."
Aftermath. The Chen family home felt like a war zone the morning after the party. Olivia sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee, as her parents moved around in stunned silence. The aftermath of her revelation had been swift and brutal. Vanessa had left in tears after a screaming match with Ethan, who had stormed off shortly after. Guests had departed hurriedly, leaving half-empty plates and awkward goodbyes in their wake. "I suppose we should talk about what happened," her father finally said, sitting across from her. "I'm not apologizing," Olivia stated firmly. "Not after what he said to me." Her mother joined them, her expression troubled. "We're not asking you to apologize. What Ethan said was unforgivable, but exposing him that way was exactly what he deserved. He humiliated me intentionally. He's been doing it my entire life, and you've both let him." The truth hung heavy between them. For years, Ethan's cutting remarks and brutal honesty had been excused as his particular brand of humor. Meanwhile, Olivia had been expected to maintain peace by absorbing his barbs without complaint. "You're right," her father admitted, surprising her. "We've enabled him. But this family is now fractured, and I don't know how to fix it." Maybe it needed breaking to be rebuilt, Olivia suggested quietly. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Checking in. How are you holding up? The simple message warmed something inside her. Through the chaos of her divorce, and now this family implosion, Marcus have remained steadfast. She texted back, Family summit happening now. Could use a rescue. His reply came quickly. Coffee at Riverside Park in 30? Olivia excused herself from the table, promising her parents they would continue the conversation later. 20 minutes later, she found Marcus waiting on a bench overlooking the river, 2 cups in hand. 1 caramel latte with an extra shot, he said, handing her the larger cup. Figured you needed it. You have no idea. She settled beside him, their shoulders almost touching. My parents are in shock. No word from Ethan. Have you heard from Vanessa? She texted me this morning, actually. Thanked me for telling her the truth, though she's understandably not thrilled about how she found out. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. And how are you, really? The question, so simple yet rare in its genuine concern, made Olivia's eyes sting. How long had it been since someone had asked how she was without expecting her to minimize her feelings? I'm surprisingly okay, I realized aloud. I should feel terrible about causing such a scene, but mostly I feel free. Like I've been carrying this weight of always being the good daughter while Ethan got away with everything. That's called standing up for yourself, Marcus smiled. It looks good on you. She studied him then, this man who had been beside her through everything. There was something in his expression she'd never fully recognized before, a warmth that went beyond friendship. Why have you always been so good to me, Marcus? He looked away, suddenly finding great interest in his coffee cup. Because you deserve someone who sees your worth, Liv. You always have. The implication in his words made her heart beat faster. Before she could respond, her phone rang, Ethan's name flashing on the screen. I should take this, she said reluctantly. Marcus nodded understanding. I'll be right here. As Olivia answered the call, preparing for whatever storm was coming, she found comfort in those 4 simple words. Whatever happened with her brother, with her family, she wasn't facing it alone anymore. Healing bonds. Ethan's call had been unexpected. Not an apology, but a request to meet. 3 days after the disastrous party, Olivia found herself sitting across from her brother at a quiet cafe downtown. Vanessa moved out, he said without preamble, looking more disheveled than Olivia had ever seen him. She's staying with her sister until she finds her own place. I'm sorry about that, Olivia replied, surprised to find she meant it. Not about telling the truth, but about the pain it caused. He nodded slowly. I deserved it. What I said to you at the party was unforgivable. Why did you say those things, Ethan? We used to be close when we were kids. He stared into his untouched coffee. Jealousy mostly? Mom and Dad always thought you were so perfect. Straight A student, perfect job, perfect marriage. When your divorce happened, I guess I felt validated somehow. Like finally something had gone wrong for golden child Olivia. Perfect? Olivia laughed bitterly. My marriage was a nightmare. Richard controlled everything, what I wore, who I saw, how I spent money. The divorce wasn't a failure. It was escape. Something shifted in his expression. I didn't know. You never asked, she said simply, just like I never asked what was happening with you and Zoe. A fragile understanding formed between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a first tentative step towards something new. Meanwhile, Olivia and Marcus had begun spending evenings together, ostensibly as friends supporting each other, but with an undercurrent of something deeper neither had acknowledged. They cooked dinner at her apartment, watched old movies, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. On a warm Friday evening, Marcus suggested they have dinner on his apartment balcony. Olivia arrived to find twinkling lights strung overhead, a bottle of wine breathing, and Marcus looking uncharacteristically nervous. This feels suspiciously like a date, she teased as he pulled out her chair. Would that be so terrible? He asked, his voice serious despite his smile. The question hung between them as they ate, their conversation flowing naturally as always, yet charged with new possibility.
When Marcus reached across the table to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch lingered. "I've been in love with you for years," he confessed quietly. "I never said anything because the timing was always wrong. You were with Richard, then going through the divorce. But I don't want to wait anymore and risk losing my chance." My heart raced faster. "Why me? I'm such a mess right now." "No," Marcus shook his head. "You're stronger than you've ever been. You stood up to your brother. You're rebuilding your life. You're finally becoming the Olivia I've always seen underneath all that self-doubt." He moved his chair beside hers, taking her hands in his. "I don't expect an answer tonight. I just wanted you to know." But Olivia already knew her answer. Leaning forward, she kissed him, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as his arms encircled her. Unlike her relationship with Richard, built on compromise and ultimately control, this felt like coming home to a place she hadn't known she was missing. Later that night, as they laid together talking in the gentle darkness of his bedroom, Olivia realized that, from the wreckage of her marriage and family drama, something beautiful was emerging. A relationship built on friendship, respect, and genuine love. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Had a long talk with Mom and Dad today. Working on myself. Hope we can keep talking too." Reading it over her shoulder, Marcus kissed her temple. "Progress?" "Baby steps," Olivia agreed, setting the phone aside and turning back to the man who had waited so patiently to love her.
New beginnings. Autumn painted the city in warm hues as Olivia stood nervously outside her parents' home, Marcus's reassuring presence beside her. 4 months had passed since the infamous party, and tonight would be the first Chen family dinner with everyone present, including Ethan. "Remember," Marcus squeezed her hand, "we can leave anytime you want." The door opened before she could respond, her mother greeting them with tentative warmth. Inside, the dining room table was set with care, Ethan already seated and looking up with an uncertain smile. "You came," he said, standing as they entered. "I said I would," Olivia replied. The weekly coffee meetings with her brother had gradually evolved from awkward apologies to genuine conversations, rebuilding their relationship one difficult truth at a time. Dinner progressed with careful conversation, the family finding their way back to each other through shared memories and cautious laughter. When Ethan mentioned he had started therapy, their father, who would always dismiss such things as unnecessary talk, nodded with surprising approval. "I'm proud of you," he told Ethan, then turned to Olivia. "Of both of you. You've shown more courage than I ever did at your age." As dessert was served, Olivia reached for Marcus's hand under the table, drawing strength from his steady presence. Their relationship had deepened over the months, each discovering in the other a partnership neither had experienced before, one built on equality and mutual respect. Later that evening, walking along the riverfront park where they had so often found refuge during difficult times, Marcus stopped beneath their favorite maple tree. "I've been thinking," he began, suddenly serious. "That sounds dangerous," Olivia teased, though her heart quickened at his expression. "The lease on my apartment ends next month, and I know we've only been officially together for a few months, but we've been in each other's lives for years, and I've never been more certain of anything." "Are you asking to move in together?" Olivia asked, surprised by how right the idea felt. "I'm asking if you're ready for that step. There's no rush. I just know that every morning I wake up with you feels like where I'm meant to be." Olivia considered the journey that had brought her here, from a controlling marriage to the humiliation of that night, to the painful but necessary rebuilding of her family relationships. Each step, however difficult, had led her to this moment of clarity. "Yes," she said simply, "I'm ready." The joy in Marcus's eyes mirrored her own as he kissed her, both of them laughing as nearby joggers whistled appreciatively. That weekend, Olivia met Ethan for their regular coffee. He looked better than he had in months, clear-eyed and present in a way he hadn't been before. "I heard about you and Marcus moving in together. I'm happy for you, Liv. He's a good man." "He is," I agreed. "How about you? Any developments?" Ethan shook his head. "I'm taking time to figure myself out before involving anyone else. Therapy is helping me understand why I treated relationships, and you, the way I did." "I'm proud of you," Olivia told him, meaning it. As they talked, Olivia reflected on how her brother's cruel toast had inadvertently set her free,
not just from his shadow, but from her own fear of standing up for herself. In exposing his secret, she had also exposed her own strength. That night, as she and Marcus began packing books into boxes for their upcoming move, Olivia felt a contentment she had once thought impossible. Her life wasn't perfect, family healing took time and old habits died hard, but it was authentically hers, built on truth and courage rather than appearances. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, noticing her pause. "Just that sometimes," Olivia smiled, "the best new beginnings come from the messiest endings." He pulled her into his arms, and as they stood surrounded by the physical evidence of their future together, Olivia knew that whatever challenges came next, she would face them honestly, bravely, and never again in silence.